Hey, Andy, welcome back to segment two of our series on feeling isolated and what we can do about it. Thanks for joining us again this week. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Kyle. It's good to talk to you.
And if our viewers haven't seen it already, go back and check out part one, and you can find out we talked about what isolation is, and it might be surprising to people. The things that we can do that isolate ourselves without us knowing about it. It's an awesome interview. I appreciate your time on that. So let's talk this week a little bit about what the solution is, and I'll start by sharing a little bit of a personal story, which kind of spurred all of this on for me. This was back in March, I think. You and I, we were doing your coaching program, going about every other week. We were talking and making progress, and then suddenly in March, I had this situation just kind of blow up on me, and this person that I had greatly respected and kind of worked with for a number of years just laid into me. Our team kind of dropped the ball on him, and it was an unfortunate situation. But their response to it was to just chew me out, and I just felt about 1 inch tall after that. And there was some of that anger that was justified because we did drop the ball, but there was also a lot of anger that they spewed on me that was just anger, and it was just acid, and it hurt, right? And so suddenly, the next time I talked to you, I had just kind of fallen apart after this. I just was a wreck, and it was messing up. I couldn't sleep. I didn't eat well. I couldn't be present with my family. I was a big mess. And as we talked about it, we unpacked that it wasn't just this one situation that kind of spurred this on. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. It
Mm-hmm.
was a series of decisions that I had made in my life that said I am going to be the only one who can take care of my problems, and I'm never going to let anybody else help me with them. I'm going to be the action hero of my day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was messed up, and we talked a little bit about some of the real things I came to realize in that last episode together. But once I'd kind of gotten over some of that, it took about a month doing some sabbaticals and talking to some people in my life and getting help. Uh, Kind of got over some of that issues. Well, here we are, weeks later, and even as early as this past week, I'm sitting on the couch with my wife, and we're having this kind of spat back and forth, and she helped me realize, yeah, you know what, you haven't solved this problem in your life. It may not be that same issue, it may not be that same thing that happened in March, but you're still struggling with wanting to keep all the cards, not letting anybody else in your life to help you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's seeping over into other areas. And so I realized, you know what, this issue of isolating yourself is not a one-off scenario. It's a long game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's constant practice. Excuse me. So I was hoping that you could just take a second and just kind of talk to the endurance. You don't just solve one problem
Mm-hmm.
with this. It's not one isolated thing. It's a series of things. Can you speak a little bit to the endurance that takes to overcome those isolating feelings and those feelings of being alone?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, a couple of things, and for people who are watching or listening, just so you know, I've gotten permission first to share a little bit of this about your experience. But you did some things in the middle of the crisis. Let's talk crisis first, then let's talk about kind of an ongoing process. All right. In the crisis, you did some amazingly healthy things. Number one, you stepped away from the situation. Okay, this was an in business kind of situation. You got out of town, and you turned to people that you trusted the most in the crisis, which were me. You had a coaching relationship with somebody, and there was
Yep.
somebody who was not emotionally involved in the process that could sit and listen without judgment, but also without false approval. Just sit and listen and talk about, okay, what are you going to do better next time, right?
Which was great. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and but also you got away and went and did something fun, totally unrelated whatsoever to the situation. You got with family, you went out of town. I think you went to a concert or something, but you just had a great time. Okay, all the while this is kind of nagging and chewing on you, but at least you removed yourself from the situation. Another thing you did that I thought was so healthy was you got spiritually reconnected. You got alone, and this is an important point. Isolation is not the same thing as solitude. Okay, and it's not the same thing as being an introvert. Just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you're isolating. And this is what our extrovert friends need to realize and get over it. Okay.
Yeah, everybody, listen.
Yeah. Okay. You don't, introverts recharge by being alone or with one other person. That's not the same thing as isolating. Okay. Uh, Solitude. You needed time, and we all do, to sit, to pray, to process, to think, to reimagine, uh, and to get your head back in the game. Okay. That's true of anybody, um, who goes through any kind of stress or growth or anything like that. All right. So if that's not the problem, but actually is part of the solution, then what is the problem? The problem is when we choose to assume that we can't let anybody see our weakness, or that our problems are only ours to solve, or watch this, when we don't let people hear our dreams. One of the ways that we isolate sometimes, especially we creatives and we dreamers, is we have all these dreams going on in our heads, right? And the first time we ever dared to share it with somebody and they laughed it off or they told us it couldn't be done, something goes off in our heads that says, I'll never do that again. I'll never be so vulnerable as to share with you what my dreams are. When you do that, you've begun the process of isolation. And that may be an innocent choice at first, but down the road, that will come back to haunt you. All right. So, so short term, you did the things necessary that I think are true of anybody who goes through that initial crash kind of experience. All right. But you mentioned, and this is so wise, that this is a long game, and it really is. And so, what are some things, some practical things that we can do to avoid the hitting the ditch that isolation can lead us toward? Okay, a couple of things. Number one, connection. You got to stay connected in community, and that there's two levels of that. One is connected with the people who are immediately involved in the situation. And organizational leadership, we call it your stakeholders. Okay. So if you own a business and suddenly there's a problem that comes up in the business, it's not just your business or your problem to solve, it's our problem to solve. So that would be staying connected with the people on your team in the organization. But you need a different level of connection as well. You need somebody who is not emotionally involved in the situation, who can give you perspective, who can help you come away and if you need to vent, fine, but otherwise, let's go to a concert, let's go play, let's go think about something different, and just kind of help you realize there's a big wide universe and a big planet out there of stuff that isn't in your funk, it isn't in your world. And just having those kind of connections, having those trusted relationships with people who love you but aren't impressed by you, who
they bring you back down to earth.
They do, and that they'll speak the truth in love. Obviously, we want our spouses to do that. We want our family to do that. We want our close partners and associates to do that at work. But just walking in community, sometimes even if you don't ever discuss the real issues at hand, but just knowing you're doing this thing together, I think is huge.
Yeah.
I think staying emotionally healthy, which does require some healthy solitude, thinking, dreaming, journaling, processing, I think is absolutely vital. I think having a safe space somewhere, whether it's with a counselor, a coach, or a mentor, somebody that you can openly dream with, that you can get fanciful with, come up with the nuttiest ideas, and know that they're going to cheer you on, and know that they're not going to judge every little idea or try to critique or evaluate unless you specifically give them permission to do that. And I think it all comes down to the same thing. It's, what are you going to do with the key relationships in your life who can help you get where you're going, who can help you solve your problems, who can help multiply your effectiveness if you're willing to let go of your control.
Yeah. Would you say it's safe to say that healthy is being vulnerable and surrounding yourself with just the right people, and trusting that while they're people and while they're imperfect, that they still care about you and they still love you just as much as you care about them, and they want the best for you. So when you surround yourself with those kinds of relationships, that's healthy. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
And I think
Absolutely.
that key word that you said was vulnerable, being vulnerable. I mean, being able to talk, like I speak with you about every other week, that we
Mhm,
talk I talk about my dreams, about where I want to go and my goals, and there's no judgment, and that's wonderful.
mhm,
Um and but then I've got best friends that I talk to, and it's a different kind of conversation, and different the same way with my wife. I can share my dreams with my wife, and she can be a cheerleader for me, or sometimes a voice of harsh reason that I need to hear.
mhm,
Um, but I think if once you get isolated, it's almost like a cancer, because it starts to feed on itself.
mhm,
That you get yourself isolated from people, and you keep convincing yourself that this is good,
mhm,
and that this is the only way to go. So maybe this the last thing we can maybe talk about is that I'm sure there's people who go, well, I would love to have healthy relationships. I would love to get vulnerable with people. We can't solve all their problems in a 10 to 15-minute long video, but
mhm.
we can maybe help give them the encouragement to, where do you go from here? And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going, well, that's me, but I'm terrified about the idea of going to somebody with this with my brokenness, and sharing that with them, being vulnerable.
Mhm.
So, what do you suggest people do to take those first steps to overcome that fear and go and embrace relationships that are already around them and that are wanting to help them?
Mhm. Couple of thoughts. Number one, not to sound like a broken record or sound self-serving, get a coach. Pay somebody.
Yeah.
Pay a therapist or a coach, and start with somebody who listens to people for a living. Okay, my wife is a therapist, and I tell people all the time, if you have a problem, go see my wife. If you have a future, come see me. And we can have that conversation. But with regard to taking the baby steps, here's the thing. Um, just a word of encouragement. The people who love you love you. They love you whether you succeed or fail. They love you whether you face plant, or whether you land a rocket on Mars. They love you, and they're for you. They may not sound like they're for you when you first share your dream or share your failure, but
Mm,
they are for you. Okay, they've got to process their own funk too. So one of the ways to do that is to learn uh, just healthy communication, and that starts with, somebody told me one time, Andy, uh, it's good to get things out, that you've been isolating. Just remember, you don't have to vomit all over everybody. And that really helped me, because I was in a mode at the time where I was sorry about the dog. I was at a place where I was trying to. Now there's three dogs. Sorry.
they
Um,
multiply.
so I was at a place where I was feeling free, and suddenly I was vomiting all over everybody. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is simply put your toe in the water. Start with one idea. Start with one, and it could be something as simple as, "Hey, I'm dealing with a situation here, and I'd love your feedback. Would you be up for that?" Okay,
Yeah.
no judgment, no anything. I just and start, and what you will learn is there are people you can trust and who add value and life to a conversation. There are people who you want to be able to trust, but they don't add value or life to the
Mm,
conversation. You come away feeling worse, or feeling more confused than you did when you started,
mm.
or they act like they didn't really care, or they don't want to talk about it. Okay, good. Thank you for they've given you a gift. Thank you for letting me know that you're not my solution here. Okay. And that's all right.
Yeah.
There are people who are. But I'll tell you what you can't do, Kyle, and you know this, and I know, and speaking as an introvert, I can tell you, you can't do this without risk. Yeah, you
Mm,
just can't. All right. So part of this is going to involve a little bit of relationship risk of being willing to put the toe in the water relationally, and sometimes it can be around something very simple. Hey, I had this happen, kind of still trying to figure out what to do about it or how to respond. What do you think? Throw it out there, and you'd be amazed sometimes at the wisdom. You'd be amazed at the connectedness that comes just by letting people into your world. That can create a kind of energy that can pay dividends for you way beyond an
mm.
immediate problem. And so a lot of friendships emerge out of those kind of conversations if you're willing to have them.
Yeah. The one last thing I'll plug it. You didn't ask me to, but I will say if you're watching this or this has hit a chord with any of our viewers, check out lifevesting.com. Go check out Andy's work. It has been very valuable to me in my leadership and in my relationships, just to have a voice that I can talk to regularly that is non-judgmental but can provide an unbiased opinion and an unbiased viewpoint with great knowledge, and it gives me direction. So I greatly appreciate our relationship, Andy, and I'm very thankful that you were on the show this week to talk about this thing that I think a lot of people are dealing with, whether they know it or not.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Let me just add to that. If anybody's listening to this, one of the things I offer to start with is a free 45-minute coaching session. Okay, to see if we're a fit, to see if I can help you down the road. And so all you need to do is email me, Andy@lifevesting.com, and I'll be happy to have that conversation with you. We can schedule a conversation and see where it goes. Kyle and I have been working together now, about a year and a half, and
I think so. Yeah.
it's one of the high points of my week, I want to tell you. So,
Well, thanks.
I mean that. And so, any way I can serve you or the people who are part of your universe, man, I'm glad to do that.
Thank you so much, man. And we'll put some more information to find Andy's practice on our comment section below. We hope that our viewers that you enjoyed this interview. If you enjoyed it, tell us about it in the comment section below, and tell us what interviews and topics you'd like us to cover in the future, what other kind of guests that you'd like to have on the show. We'll definitely listen to those. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe so that you don't miss anything on our channel. Andy, thanks once again. Appreciate you.
Thanks, my friend. God bless.